Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. As undoubtedly you've heard by now, Bitcoin hit a new all-time high yesterday, and it hit another new all-time high today. In fact, just about 15 minutes ago, Bitcoin hit just over $12,000, and it slightly pulled back from there at the moment. But this thing, like so many analysts out there, they think this thing, it just wants to go. There are some that think it's more likely it pulls back in the very short term, but at this point, really, there's not any dispute from any reputable analyst as to whether or not Bitcoin's going to go on a final parabolic surge. We're in a bull market still. We have been for 2.5 years despite any pullbacks along the way, and there have been notable ones along the way, certainly. But as neat and fun as that is, you know what's most exciting and way better for all of us? It's that XRP's about to wake up. Again, so many chart analysts that I follow firmly believe this. Some think it could be today, tomorrow, within the next week. Some think maybe slightly longer than that. But we are living in that moment where you should expect that to happen. You could just wake up any day, check the price, and XRP's on its way. And you could do a double or triple take. I've had those moments in my life. They're very fun days. But we are living in that moment where XRP is about to wake up. And you should expect it for a ton of reasons. And we'll get into metrics, including multiple chart analysts today noting a very significant thing happening as far as the particular XRP metric, relative strength index. Got a bullish crossover. I'll tell you what I'm talking about here a little bit later in the video. But this is the type of stuff that you should expect, even just if you're looking at historical precedent. This is what you should expect when Bitcoin's behaving like this, when we are in a bull market, when liquidity favors us, meaning global M2 increasing, all this stuff. You should expect that this is the most probable thing. And it looks like XRP actually is about to wake up again. We already had it wake up once this cycle in November. Obviously, you could, well, that into January, if you want to call that one general thing. But the next major surge, it's coming. XRP's just been consolidating for several months here, but it ain't going to stay here forever. Not in a bull market like this. There's going to be way too much flowing in. People's risk appetites are going to be increasing, and so people invest further and further out the risk curve. This is where we get our opportunity for life-changing wealth. These are the ones. It's going to be a very short-lived moment, but man, it's going to be one hell of a freaking ride. But before going further, I do want to be clear, I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. All right, as I record this video, it is now 1:58 p.m. Central Time, Thursday, May 22nd, 2025. XRP's at $2.43, up from a 24-hour low of $2.36. So regular volatility within this range, but it ain't going to stay here. Trust me, I got plenty to share with you about XRP in this video. Then you have this Bitcoin at $111,885. But as you can see, we had a 24-hour high of $112,000, just over that. And that is the all-time high. And it happened around 140. So now it's been close. It's been like 19 minutes since it hit that. I'm telling folks, while people were fearful, I mean, if you were following my channel even just a few months ago, the videos where I was talking about price and when Bitcoin hit like 75 grand, however low it got, I was like, guys, this isn't the end of the party. Go back and listen to my videos because it didn't make sense to believe that. This stuff happens. It's normal to have this, especially when markets are particularly fearful. But time and time again, what you see is that those are just points of maximal opportunity for those who wish to accumulate. Because people sell. They sell their fear. That's what they're doing. And that's why prices were so low in the stock market and in crypto. And here we are. Now Bitcoin's up like, what, $37,000 or something like that off the lows. That's kind of intense. You know, just within the last few months, it's kind of a big swing. This is not what happens in bear markets. And so there was this post from Freckie Crypto. He, of course, has been in crypto since 2011. I've highlighted a number of his posts on my channel over the years. A wealth of knowledge. He actually does work in finance as a career and has for decades. And he knows what's coming here. He's been holding XRP for probably longer than just about anybody I know. But he says, it's going to be comical how wealthy we are going to get from this crypto cycle. While so many have no idea this is happening. They are walking around in the world with zero awareness of any of this. Yes, billions have no idea. And have you ever stopped to think about it like that? I actually have a number of times over the years. I just feel so thankful that I discovered crypto and specifically XRP when I did in 2017. It has absolutely been life-changing to this point. And I still need to cash out and take profit, fine. But in terms of where my net worth is, it's just night and day. I wouldn't even be close to this. And I know that's true for so many of you listening if you've been here a while. And so, you're in the know. Congratulations to you, very sincerely. Kudos. But almost no humans know what you know. Almost no human has ever even heard of XRP. How fortunate are we? And you can see like what's going to happen next. I shared this post yesterday. It's from Raoul Pal. He's the founder and CEO of Global Macro Investor and Real Vision, former Goldman Sachs executive. He does hold some XRP. And he's noting that Bitcoin has just been following global M2. And so this is the most recent chart from him, literally yesterday. And I just wanted to highlight this again because he's not the only one that knows that this is of like terrible significance. Like, it is one of the most crucial things you can look at to determine what's going to happen next in crypto. There's about a 12-week lead time on this chart. It's exactly 12 links. That's how they line this up. Because, of course, if liquidity is increasing, as people have additional funds and businesses have additional funds, they then have to choose where to put it. So it takes a little bit of time. So if there's more liquidity, once that gets allocated, you see risk on assets just follow. And he said in a video yesterday, I think it was like 90% correlation or something like that, which is pretty high. So most of the time, if you bet that Bitcoin's going to follow what's happening, yes, that's what will happen. But anyway, so Tom Lee, a very famous individual here in the world of crypto and traditional finance, 381,000 followers. He's the CIO of Fundstrat Capital, and he's on national television all the time. He's, what's the title? He's on CNBC. What's it when you're a paid pundit to come on all the time? What's the word's escaping me? Anyway, contributor. That's it. He's a CNBC contributor. That's what they call him. So he comes on all the time, and he's highlighting the significance of this. And I don't think enough people know about this, which is why I keep trying to hammer the point home. The fact that you can see, yes, Bitcoin is almost certainly going to follow directionally. And if it does, that'll put Bitcoin up in the neighborhood, many believe, close to like $150,000. Now, some think it can go way higher than that and maybe the right. We'll find out together. But pay attention to this. Look at that. Now, of course, if you're like me, you're much more concerned about altcoins, including XRP. And so if you're wondering, well, how come Bitcoin's going, but altcoins aren't really going right now? Well, first of all, XRP has already done a lot of heavy lifting this cycle. It's not done. The best, most fun part, it actually is still ahead, which is exciting to think about because I'm still blown away by the fact that XRP's consolidating above $2 freaking. But take a look at this from chart analyst Dom at TraderView2. Why are altcoins not moving? History can teach you a thing or two about this dynamic. 3 weeks ago, I shared an analysis that proved it was Bitcoin's time, and that if we wanted a market-wide expansion, it was the exact pattern we hoped for. Now, with Bitcoin above all-time high, we look back to the last all-time high break and see that there was a 9-day delay after Bitcoin broke all-time high before alts really started moving. In that 9-day window, Bitcoin rose over 20%, while most alts were still far away from their local highs. Exact setup we are seeing now. Bitcoin sucks all the liquidity when it enters price discovery, and then it eventually trickles down. Folks, that is exactly what I've been telling you. And historically, there's no shortage of evidence of this. There's a lot of excitement when Bitcoin enters price discovery, retail comes back, so on and so forth. And then profits taken, and it goes into other large caps, and then profits taken from those, it goes into mid caps, rinse and repeat, all the way down to the smallest and small caps and micro caps. That's what's ahead of us. That's where you get the vast majority of your wealth. That's where the vast majority of the opportunity lives. That's why this is exciting. And he says the dynamic right now is what we always see. What we always see is shortly after alts wake up. And then he added this about XRP specifically on this topic, a separate post. He said, for my XRP crew, the quoted post, which is the one I just shared with you, excuse me, the quoted post applies even more to XRP than most coins. XRP never sees large moves while Bitcoin is making new highs. We know it likes the spotlight. It waits. Bitcoin chills. Then it goes. Find me a time Bitcoin broke into price discovery and XRP didn't see a large push shortly after. I'll wait. Yeah, so I don't know that there is one. I'm not aware of one where Bitcoin goes on a major push like the type that we're talking about now, and then XRP doesn't follow. And so here's his one caveat, and this is perfectly reasonable. He says, of course, this is granted on the idea Bitcoin continues price discovery over the next weeks/months and doesn't just deviate right now and fall back below. Yeah, exactly. Well, that's totally fair because, again, the whole premise is that XRP goes after Bitcoin goes. If Bitcoin starts in the short term to fall back, which is possible if it does, well, yeah, then just little tap the pause button there for XRP, but then it does play catch up once Bitcoin starts going again. That's historically the norm. That's what always happens. Every single market cycle. Here's a post from chart analyst Mustache, hashtag altcoins. Altseason 2025. The party hasn't even really started yet. 2017/2021, once again, it's coming. Oh, yeah. And so for those of you that were there for either or both of those instances, those alt seasons were absolutely bananas, insane. And I got to witness both of them, and it was a weird time. So for me, I jumped into crypto at the end of 2017 in November. And so and what happened right after I jumped into crypto? The craziest alt season in history. It was just absolutely wild. It was impossible to buy something that wasn't going to be worth like a crazy amount more, like 5 seconds later. Crazy time for anyone new to get into crypto. But that's what's at hand here. It's the same type of thing. He firmly believes that's indeed the case. And so what he's highlighting here is the market cap Bitcoin dominance percentage chart. He firmly believes that it's going to break down. He's got the chart formation that he believes is playing out. Tons of analysts agree with this. Ascending, broadening wedge. It's going to hit a peak. It's going to go down. The price of Bitcoin can and will still go up. But the dominance will decrease. And where's the dominance going? Altcoins. Absolutely. And this is what happens when you have a crazy amount of money flowing into the crypto space. Chart analyst Credible Crypto certainly agrees with this concept. He says, where we're headed in the coming months, every quote-unquote lagging alt is an opportunity to be thankful for, not a problem to be frustrated about. So that's exactly in line with what chart analyst Dom was talking about, what I just shared with you. It's not a problem that other altcoins are lagging behind. And you could argue that XRP is, considering what's happened in the last several months, it's just been consolidating, even though XRP has outperformed every other coin in the top 100 since the election. But it is true at this point, if you're just talking like in the very short term, it's lagging behind Bitcoin. If you're talking again the very short term, just in terms of price action. Again, XRP's already destroyed Bitcoin in terms of performance this cycle. But in terms of price action, sure, it's lagging behind. But pretty much every coin is. But this is the part where you should expect it to flip sooner than later. That's the point. He agrees with this as well. Here's another post from Credible Crypto. He says, regardless of how this month closes, the fact that our monthly RSI, Relative Strength Index, is pushing into overbought territory once again means that things are about to get silly. The final fifth is well underway, and we are approaching the point at which we will go soon, parabolic, and witness a blow-off top, the likes of which we haven't seen since 2017. This will be the most aggressive expansion we have seen on Bitcoin since inception. The final wave of our first secular bull cycle on Bitcoin. The culmination of a 16-year macro cycle on Bitcoin. This is what we have been preparing for since 2017, fam. Keep calm, go easy on the leverage. Where we're going, you don't need it. And let's make some effing money. Spot on. So this is the cool part. And this is one of the metrics we've got to watch so that we don't get wrong-footed, we don't screw ourselves, is one of the indicators for when Bitcoin's going to be topping here, which is a signal, and then you should be really paying attention to what's happening with alt at this point, is when the relative strength index doesn't just get into overbought territory, which it just creeped into. You got to watch to when it's getting closer to its historical peaks from the last two cycles. That's what we're going to be watching for, and I will be highlighting that on this channel because you don't want to get caught with your head in the sand. I'm telling you. You don't want to hold past where the highs are. Ideally, you know, if you can avoid it and you're looking, hey, the market's getting hot, these are top indicators historically, you want to avoid that. Now, you can be in overbought territory for a long time. So the fact that Bitcoin finally just crept back into overbought territory, if you're looking at the RSI metric, that's good. That can persist for quite a bit of time, actually. But we're nowhere near where historically it has peaked. And you do have to be careful, though. It doesn't mean that it's going to peak where it did, as high as it did last cycle or the cycle before that. So you got to be careful. You got to decide when you think it makes sense for yourself to start exiting positions. In this case, we're talking about Bitcoin. But what I am saying is it's pretty reasonable to suppose this is going to go a lot higher and get way more overbought than it already is before we hit the final peak for the cycle. Same is going to be true for XRP. We're going to be watching for that as well. And hang with me because I got something for you about XRP's RSI. Oh, man, yeah, you're going to want to see it. Just sit tight, though. Here's a post from chart analyst Bob Ye. He wrote, "The king of this cycle is about to wake up." And he was asked who that is. Who's the king of this cycle? And he responded, XRP. Duh. And I knew that before. He even answered that because I follow his post. But again, and this is another analyst here who accurately called XRP would break out. He's right. He's like, yeah, it's about to wake up. It's about to go again. Going to get completely crazier. I keep seeing this from analysts. Here's another one. That's from chart analyst Freckie Crypto. He also called the breakout for XRP throughout 2024 accurately. And this morning he said, the final XRP wave starts now. Okay, and so whether that's today, tomorrow, next week, or in a few weeks from now, we're living in that moment where you should expect that it will go. You'll zoom out in a chart a decade from now and be like, yeah, that's about where it was. And so whether, again, it's a day, a week, a month, whatever it ends up being, and I'm not predicting, but because that's just not my shtick, I don't do that. But whatever it is, a decade from now, you'll look back on this and be like, yeah, that was the time period. Yep, absolutely. Here's a post from Crypto Insight UK. This is a great one. So he shared a couple screen grabs from his newsletter. And he said, Bitcoin's liquidity is looking very similar to what we saw before Bitcoin pushed up last. And by the way, let me pause and note, he wrote this on May 3rd. Then he said, Bitcoin has been ranging for a long while, and two areas of dense liquidity have been building above us. As you can see, the majority of Bitcoin's price appreciation happened over a 28-day period. During this time, Bitcoin gained 46%. We broke out of the range and smashed through liquidity. Okay, awesome, fantastic. What about XRP though? Well, he covered that in this slide. Again, this is from May 3rd. He says, you can see this period was where we also saw the majority of gain in XRP's price. In fact, XRP gained over 470% in this period. A similar gain would take XRP to $12.60. So right in our target range. That's right, folks. Double-digit price action. That is totally within the realm of possibility. I don't know if it's going to happen. I'm not making a price prediction. I know that that's not crazy to suppose it could occur. That's not remotely crazy. And also, that's why I say the people that are expecting $20 or $30 XRP, and by the way, he thinks that's more likely. He's said that before too. Ain't crazy. We'll see if it happens. Ain't crazy. He says, I know people will argue that the market cap is larger now, so it may not be accurate to compare percentage gains. To this I say, let's look at Bitcoin dominance during XRP surge and compare that to XRP dominance. Okay, and so there is truth to that. Generally speaking, whatever percentage gains you get from the top or bottom of the top of the cycle, you're not going to get that. I mean, obviously XRP, when it was worth half a penny and then went to, $3.35, whatever it was, it's like an 80,000% gain, whatever it was. You're not going to see in a cycle 80,000% gain for XRP ever again, but that's okay. You don't need it. You actually don't. And so, but it also doesn't mean, like, if you're talking about individual movements where you get a big move like that again, I'm not saying that can't happen again. So the fact that Crypto Insight UK is not skeptical of that, yeah, I get that. I'm on the same page. I'm not calling that out. That's reasonable. That's a different concept. If you're just talking for a particular move, sure. There are lots of big moves that have happened, and then they become less and less likely to be that big as additional cycles occur. But it doesn't mean you can't have a big movement that's kind of like that. And so getting up to that realm, especially if Bitcoin's going to go even more berserk than it's already gone, yeah, that ain't crazy. And so he said, as he shared these screen grabs from May 30, he wrote, XRP holders, I want to remind you of this. I'm not saying it'll directly mimic, but I am saying watch closely. Well, we certainly are. And then there's this from Crypto Insight UK. Check this out. XRP USD chart, and look at the RSI on the bottom. Look at this. He says XRP weekly RSI bullish cross. And so what he's highlighting here is that the purple line, which is the actual RSI for a relative strength index for XRP, has crossed over the moving average, the yellow line, for the RSI, indicating something happening with momentum. The last time this happened, when we were closer to what might be considered oversold territory, look what happened. Look at when that son of a bitch moved up. Look at that. The election happened and bam, it just ripped. So what he's saying here is the last time that happened, we were in oversold territory. Look. And now we're creeping out of that. And it just so happens to be about half a year later, which is roughly the time gap from last cycle between XRP's two major bursts and the cycle before that. Well, that's kind of interesting, don't you think? It's almost like history kind of rhymes with itself. Duh. He's not the only one that noticed this. Here's a post from chart analyst Dark Defender. On November 4th, XRP had a golden cross signal on the weekly RSI. We warned in October. Today, XRP RSI has produced the same signal after 200 days. XRP is targeting $3.33 in the short term and is expected to fire the bullet, which will then likely flatten itself against the $5.85 parapet. Our targets are clear. Yeah, and so he didn't mention it in this video, but he does think XRP is going to peak closer to like 18 bucks. So he's talking about some, a couple of the next steps that we're going to see first, of course. But look what he's highlighting. It's the same thing. RSI here on the bottom. He noticed it as well. Multiple analysts have noticed this. And it was a big deal last time this happened for XRP. Bullish cross indeed, my friends. And it's happening at a time when you would want and hope it to. Do you see how everything's actually perfectly coming together? Like a jigsaw puzzle? It's fantastic. It's what you want to see. This is the most excited I've ever been to be an XRP holder. Because I feel like, even though I don't know exactly how things are going to unfold, of course not, I feel like I'm pretty close to know in a general sense what's about to happen. And what I mean, it's more vagueness to a degree anyway, but Bitcoin, final parabolic surge, Bitcoin dominance plummets, Altseason, XRP goes on its first instance of price discovery in over 7 years and melts faces. Those general things, I feel like I almost want to say I know, like I have that strong a level of conviction it's going to happen. Why the hell wouldn't it? It doesn't make sense. Make the argument, I'll listen. But you better have a really persuasive and new argument, because I've heard a lot. And the bears have been disastrously wrong. It's just the bears going with whatever is happening in terms of momentum. Most recently in recent months, as market's been down a bit. No shortage of bears, but the analysts that I follow weren't calling for that. And also, the analysts that I follow, in the beginning of 2023, as Bitcoin was like $16,000, there were still bears back then. Hey, it's just going to keep going lower. And then the analysts I follow were all like, actually, it bottomed roughly around here. And they were right. You just got to watch who you listen to is all, And so that's why I don't expect anybody to be perfect. That'd be a completely unrealistic expectation. But on the whole, like the analysts that I follow, it's because they're way more accurate than not, right? And so then I look at, when they have instances of overlap and agreement, and then when that happens, then I really take note. Because then whatever they say is going to happen almost always happens. And so they all agree, we're going to see the fireworks here. I absolutely buy that narrative. 100% I do. It's just a question of when, but it's coming, folks. Life-changing wealth is at hand. It really actually, for serious, is this time. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.